وصحبه وموالاه. From now on, the outline of this class will be that the start will be for the reciter who is next to me, the Shaykh, by which he will praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and fast salutation upon his Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and document the number of the class number 3 tonight, and also to document the date. Tonight is the night of Sabt, which is the 22nd of Rabi' al-Thani, the year 1440 after Hijrah, and it is 28th of December 2018. And then we will start with saying the page number in the English book, which the Shaykh has got here. You've got this version. If you haven't got this version, you have to follow with, by matching the title. And that's he's going to be reading from there, and I will make him to stop where I want him to stop, and then I will make my elaboration. So please start from the page number, which is?
This is in XIX, what it is.
You have only one microphone. Okay, X, this is Roman.
It's
It doesn't matter, I just read it, XIX.
XIX.
Kalas.
Misconceptions cleared. The preceding introduction was written 10 years ago, during which time it has become apparent to us that our words have had a positive effect on Muslim youth in guiding them towards the obligation methods of their deen and worship to return to the pure sources of Islam. The book and the Sunnah among them, there was an increase in the ranks of those who practiced the Sunnah and devoted themselves to it. Praise be to Allah, such that they become conspicuous for it. However, I still find among some of them a steadfastness in failing to practice the Sunnah, not due to any doubt about its obligation after reading the Quranic verses and narration from the Imams about going back to the Sunnah, but because of some objections and misconceptions which they had heard from some of Muqaddid Shaykhs. Therefore, I decided to mention these incorrect notions and refute them, so that perhaps this would encourage more people to practice the Sunnah and thus be among the saved, Allah willing.
Bismillah, walhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. When the Shaykh had written the book at the beginning, and the book was in print, and was, alhamdulillah, being successful, lots of people had to start to follow the Sunnah. And this book had enemies, and those enemies, they're not from the outsiders of Islam, of Muslims, but they are from different madhab, school of thoughts. And they thought this book poses a danger for them. So they started making some sort of misconception, shubuhat. Things that the people will say, that this book is not supposed to be followed, because there is number 1, 2, 3 misconception. So the Shaykh decided to go and deal with this misconception, which is for us to learn. Because, as I said, the book is not just to learn how to pray according to the Prophet ﷺ, but also it sets a methodology for us. This is the Salaf methodology being set in the introduction of the book. From the start to the end, if you remember, we talked about in the previous classes how the Prophet ﷺ had, when he told his companion, pray as you have seen me praying, he did not tell them, pray as you have seen Abu Hanifa or Imam Malik or Imam Shafi'i or Imam Muhammad. And all the Imams themselves as well, they have championed that saying, that you have to refer to the source and not to take the saying of the Imam as your deen. This is a continuation of that, so there will be more of explanation for you to learn in order to learn your manhaj. This is even the frame where your aqidah lies in. If you haven't got that frame, your aqidah will be everywhere. So I need to learn, very importantly, this introduction of the Shaykh Rahmatullahi alayhi. So the misconception, he starts by number 1, and it is, some of them say
there's no doubt that it is obligatory to return to the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the matters of our deen, especially in the recommended acts of worship such as prayer, where there is no room for opinion or ijtihad, due to their immutable nature. However, we hardly hear any of the muqaddis sheikhs propounding this. In fact, we find them upholding difference of opinion, which they regard as flexibility for the ummah. Their proof for this is the hadith which they repeatedly quote in certain circumstances,
which is اختلاف أمتي رحمة, translation of which
the difference of opinion among my ummah is mercy. It seems to us that this hadith contradicts the principle to which you invite and base on, which have compiled in this book and others. So what do you say about this hadith?
So this is the misconception that's been presented by the Shaykh, or to the Shaykh, by those people saying, these people are saying that we go to them with this book, that the Prophet of Allah, he said, اختلاف أمتي رحمة. The differing of opinions amongst the scholars, Imam Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, all of that, is to be considered a mercy. So that means your book is not a mercy, because it's setting us on one methodology, one opinion, whereas we do have opinions to pick up from. Why should you limit the opinions to one? There's a mercy in that, and that's the hadith attributed to the Prophet of Allah. The answer is as follows, and I'm going to need as well, make the brother to, not maybe to read, I'll explain. Number one, he said that the hadith is not authentic. Not only that, it is hadith that has no chain to trace its authenticity. Meaning that we cannot check whether this hadith is a hadith in the first place. It hasn't got chain to link it to the Prophet ﷺ. So Al-Allama Al-Subki and others, for example, they have said, I have never came across the chain of these narrators. And also on top of that, there's another hadith, Ashabi kan-nujum bi-ayyihi muqtadaytum ihtadaytum. My companions are like the stars. Through whatever star you follow, then you'll be guided. Now I would like to refer to what Shaykh Al-Albaani Rahimahullāh says about this hadith, اختلاف أمتي رحمة, in his Silsila al-Da'ifah, and that is hadith number 57, in which he deals with it in the volume number 1. He says, this hadith, لا أصل له, has no foundation for it. And the muhaddithun had strived hard to find a chain for this hadith. They couldn't, until to the extent of As-Suyuti Rahimahullah, he said in the Jami' al-Saghir, and this is maybe a book that documented the chain, which we haven't really reached it, we haven't discovered it. So Shaykh Al-Albaani said this is far off for fetching, for verily that if that book which contains such a hadith had been lost, I mean the ummah had lost a heritage which is linked to their aqidah, and that's impossible. And Al-Munawi also, he narrates from the Subki the same thing. He did not see a chain for narrators for this, which means this hadith cannot be founded. Also on top of that, we do have that the hadith in terms of meaning-wise, it is not to be accepted. For Al-Imam Al-Allama Ibn Hazm, in his book Al-Ihkam fi Usul Al-Ahkam, in which he had indicated that this hadith is not a hadith, and then he says, and this is from the most corrupted sayings, a person to say that the difference amongst the imams and the ummah is to be a sign of mercy. For verily, if it is a mercy, then synchronizing would be a sign of wrath. Do you understand me? Because there is nothing except for mercy and brutality, unmerciful. So if we say that being different in opinions is to be a mercy, then to be united in one opinion, then it's what? Disaster. So it means, it entails this. So if we are collective, or we are decided about one opinion and united ourselves upon one methodology, then it's a sign of bad. That's what it entails. And then not only that, he said in a different place, batil. This is a falsehood, makdhub, lied upon the Prophet ﷺ. Then the Shaykh says, and for value, that from the effect of this hadith, which is not a hadith, on so many Muslims who are saying and adopting because of this the difference among the four madhab, and they're not really trying to go back to the book and the sunnah, an authentic sunnah, as their imams whom they are claiming to follow, that they told him to go back to that source. But they say that, for example, that these are to be like different religions. So they say this, and even they see themselves. There is ikhtilaf, difference amongst these opinions, so much that one is the opposite of the other one. One says halal, and one says haram, and one says do, and the other one says don't do. How can it be from Allah? Because Allah says in the Quran, وَلَوْ كَانَ مِنْ عِنْدِ غَيْرِ اللَّهِ لَوَجَدُوا فِيهِ اخْتِلَافًا كَثِيرًا. If it had been from other than Allah, they would have found a lot of contradictions in it. So this ayah is clear cut, that the ikhtilaf, and I'm reading by the way from Naasir-ud-Deen of Shaykh Al-Albaani. And the ayah, it is clear cut that the ikhtilaf, the difference, is not from Allah. So how can you make it a sharia legislation to be followed and a mercy being sent upon mankind? Because of this hadith, so many Muslims had stayed following the four imams, differing in even the masail, issues regarding aqidah and creed. And if they have seen that this contradiction is to be evil, just like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud had seen it when he prayed behind Uthman ibn Affan in Mina, and he's supposed to be praying to Raka Uthman, but he prayed 4 of the Dhuhr, so he prayed behind him 4, and he said, verily I prayed behind the Prophet, and behind Abu Bakr and Umar, all of them they prayed 2, and I wish my 4 to become 2, but all contradictions is to be evil. He prayed behind him because he's the Imam, but he says that he's wrong, he's supposed to be praying 2. So you could see Abdullah ibn Mas'ud criticize that contradiction. And this is what the proof comes from the book and comes from the Sunnah. So if they have seen that, they would have strived to be united, and they would have said to themselves, we should really go to the source in order to know what is wrong and what is correct, what is haqq and what is batil. Then after they have seen that, they would have given excuses to one another regarding what they have differed upon. Plus just to say the difference is a sign of mercy, that's absurd. Right, so when they adopt such a hadith, which is, we just said now, it's not a hadith, it's a fabricated one, not to say it's got no origin, nothing to be checked, whether it's authentic or not authentic. We find people now, they're praying 4 prayers in every prayer. And the Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِذَا أُقِيمَتِ الصَّلَاةِ فَلَا صَلَاةَ إِلَّا الْمَكْتُوبَةِ. When the prayer call is being established, then there is no prayer. If it's the iqamah, there's no prayer except for that prayer which the iqamah was called for, Imam Muslim's narrations. So if in that hadith they knew this, how can they pray different 4 prayers behind one imam? And that imam has to be that imam. So if the call of the prayer iqamah is being called, how dare that if that iqamah for the Hanafi, for example, the Shafi'i would wait, and the Maliki would wait, and the Hanbali would wait for that turn. When the Prophet ﷺ said, when the prayer is to be called, and everybody comes to the prayer, not each one prays his own prayer. So in all, the ikhtilaf is criticized. Contradiction is not correct. And this is from the reason of the weakness of the ummah. And that Allah says, وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ. Do not differ and do not argue with one another, and then you will fail and your power will go away. But just to accept it and call it mercy in contradiction to the ayah and contradiction to the hadith of the Prophet of Allah, this is not correct. Now, this is where we come to the following hadith, and that is the attributing of the Prophet of Allah, Ashabi kan nujum. Ashabi kan nujum. That is, my companions are to be like the stars. For verily, whichever companion you follow, then you are guided. This hadith, the Shaykh Al-Albaani talks about it in Silsilat-ud-Deen, the following hadith, 58. And he says, mawdu', fabricated. It's got a chain of narrations, but it is not correct. It's haram to attribute it to the Prophet of Allah. Again, Ibn Hazm, Rahimahullāh, he says in his book Al-Ikam. He said that this riwayah, this hadith, is fabricated. It is lying. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He had described His Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَمَا يَنْطِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ. He does not speak from vain. from he does not speak from vain. He does not speak from lust and desires. In huwa illa wahyu yuha. He is a revelation. That means a prophet who receives revelation. So if the Prophet ﷺ sayings regarding the Sharia is to be all of it haqq, and is to all of it to be compulsory, then it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if it hasn't been from Allah, you will find lots of contradiction in it. And that now we could see how this hadith can be wrong completely. He says, if this hadith is to be authentic, which is not, we will find that things to be halal and haram. Number one, you find some of the companions makes it halal to sell alcohol. Jabir or Samurah ibn Jundub radiyallahu anhu. This is a companion whom Sahih al-Bukhari written for him. Companion. He used to sell alcohol. Wine. He used to sell wine. Now, how can we say that any companion you follow, then you'll be guided? Then any person would say, I am selling alcohol because Samurah ibn Jundub is a companion, I'm following my companion. See, God, alhamdulillah, that they don't know these people who sell alcohol from the Muslims, that Samurah ibn Jundub, he does sell alcohol. Samurah ibn Jundub radiallahu anhu, we can explain in a minute, because I'm going to give you, first of all, what to learn from this. Samurah ibn Jundub, he didn't know that the Prophet of Allah had cursed with alcohol 10. One of them is what? The one who carries it, and the ones who buys it, and the one who sells it, and the one who's being carried to it. So lots of things being cursed. It's not just the drinking. So he thinks the drink is haram. So you have an excuse for Samurah, but we don't have an excuse for the person who had heard the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. If it was correct to follow any companion, then any person during the day of Ramadan, and Ramadan is going to be pushing towards the winter, and if there's hail, you know the hail? Hail is like a stone balls. Huh? It's a balls of ice. Huh? Stone of ice. If the shower's here, one of you will just say, let me lick it. Well, he's fasting. Brother, what do you do? He said, well, my companion is Abu Talha radiallahu anhu. Abu Talha is my role model. And he's authentic. It is authentic. He was seen during the month of Ramadan while the heavens, everybody's listening now. Can I tell you this? The heavens is raining hail. And hail is not really something that is very common in those areas. It does, but it's not all the time, once maybe every 3-4 years. He took one of the hails and he started to lick it. So some of the companions said to him, what are you doing? And this hadith is authentic, on the authority of Anas radiallahu anhu. What are you doing? The companion said. Can you eat this? You know, it means like a place you will pass. He said, no, it is barakah from the heavens. Purifies your stomach. It's not food or drink. Are we going to follow now Abu Talha radiallahu anhu, based upon this false hadith which says, my companions like the stars. Whichever you follow, then you'll be guided. Definitely we will not. We will prove that this hadith, even not just the hadith in itself in chain-wise is belied upon the Prophet, is a lie, but also meaning-wise not correct. That's what it is. We can't follow Abu Talha. That's why the companions objected to him. What are you doing? So it's not food, it's not drink, it's barakah, purifies barakah, the stomach. We cannot follow Samurah ibn Jundub, nor we can follow Abu Talha radiallahu anhuma. We will see now the difference among the companions, and we will as well explain that in a minute, inshallah. So Ibn Hazm Rahimahullāh, he says, for verily, those people had made a mistake when they said that the contradiction is to be a mercy, and they have used this hadith as an alibi. For verily, number one, it is not authentic, and number two, listen, Prophet of Allah does not say the batil, but all it is saying is haqq. So now, how can we say that the Prophet of Allah said, my companions, I like the stars, and this example is wrong? Because the people themselves, they don't follow any star, do they? They follow the star which is the proper one. So they want to go to the north, they follow the star of the north. they don't follow any star, they will be misguided. So even in terms of setting an example for the companions in the stars is wrong. And this as well demolishes this hadith completely. And that is chain-wise and meaning-wise as well. Now we come to the Shaykh Rahimahullah, when his book, where he says, Shubuha, misconception number 2. Others, they say. Number 2.
Others say, if differing in the deen is forbidden, what do you say about the differences among the companions and among the imams after them? Is there any distinction between their differing and that of later generations?
So this saying basically, okay, what about the Sahaba? They differed with one another. We have Abdullah ibn Mas'ud different from Uthman ibn Affan, as we have said. We have just said that Abu Talha is different from the whole of the companions. What do you say regarding this? If the companions were different, so why not the imams of the world be different? Same thing. So what is the answer? He says, yes. But there is a big difference between the two differences. How? Number 1, the reason of it. Number 2, the effect of it. Number 1, for the reason of it, that the difference among the companions, it was actually a necessity because some of them, they did not hear what others had heard. They did not choose to be different. So it's not like the difference of those who wants to be different. For many of the companions, they used to sit with one another and discuss that difference, and one would submit to the other. Like for example, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud with Umar ibn Khattab. Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu, he used to see that the person who is on janaba does not make, if he hasn't got ghusl, does not make tayammum. And Abdullah ibn Mas'ud object on Umar ibn Khattab. And he said, do you remember what Ammar ibn Yasir had done? And he told him, and he said, Umar ibn Khattab, well, if you think that this tayammum, which is the dry ablution, is being founded, then go ahead. So you see here, Umar did not say, okay, there's no tayammum, either water or not. Another one he said, tayammum. But Umar Khattab now, when he had heard that there's a proof, he what? Submitted. And he followed. For example, Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman radiallahu anhu, with Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He was in the Kufa, and Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, he saw people making i'tikaf in the masjid. So he said, Prophet of Allah, he said, there is no i'tikaf except in the 3 masajid. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he said, are you sure? He said, yes, I've heard this from the Prophet. Maybe they have heard something you haven't heard. No, this is what I've heard from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Allah ibn Mas'ud was of the opinion that there is i'tikaf in any masjid which is already masjid. But now, when he had heard Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman, he adopted his opinion. You see how the companions is different from those who says, I'm Shafi'i and Maliki, and they don't sit with another to say that this is wrong and this is correct, and iron their differences. So in terms of reason why is this different? And in terms of effect-wise, it's different. You find the people who are from different madhab, they would not pray behind one another. Whereas the companions, they used to pray behind one another. For verily, we find the companions would, for example, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud had prayed behind Uthman ibn Affan, even when he had prayed 4 rak'ah while he was in Hajj in Mina, supposed to pray 2, he prayed behind him. He did not say, I'm going to make my own prayer. Because he said to be differing as well and leave the prayer is more evil. So the companions, even though they differ, but they love one another. Is that the same for those people who are on Hanafi madhab and Shafi'i madhab and Hanbali madhab? Wallahi, it reaches the point that one person would cut the finger of another person, which happened when this person, he was following the madhab of Imam Malik, which he moves the finger in the tashahhud. He traveled to an area which is dominated by the Hanafi madhab, and the people there warned that guy from moving his finger, and he did not listen. They broke it for him. They cut it off for him. That's how severe and strict they are. They will tell you in some of the masajid, if you put the feet with the feet, brother, if you want to put the feet with the feet, go to the masjid Wahhabi, such and such masjid. This is not your place in this masjid. Wallah, they'll kick him out. They will not tolerate in a masjid Hanafi for a person who is not Hanafi to lead them. No way. It has to be from the same madhab. That's how the madhab had split the ummah and made them weaker. And that's why he says the trace of this is incorrect. Now we have a book, a great book, which is a book called Hadiyat al-Sultan ila Muslimi Bilad al-Yaban. And another name for it, هل المسلم ملزم باتباع مذهب معين. The two translations for this book, the name is the same book. It is the Hadiyah, means the gift of the Sultan to the Muslimin in Japan. And another name for this book is the Muslim abided to follow a particular madhab. This book is being made by Muhammad Sultan al-Masumi to be sent to those people in Yaban who were about to embrace Islam, but some of them they said, you have to enter according to the Hanafi madhab. Others said, no, it's a Shafi'i madhab. So the Japanese, they were at the moment confused, which they thought there's two religions. It's not two school of thought. That's what had actually happened, that the madhab was a block and hindering from people to enter into Islam. Because the people see that the Muslim is not supposed to be like this, supposed to be united, but when they find out they are not united, subhanallah, as I said, it will be a block for them to enter the deen of Islam. Go to difference, misconception number 3, please. And that is page number?
Number 26.
26, please.
Misconception 3. Others have the idea that what we invite to are following the Sunnah and not accepting the views of the Imams contrary to it, means to completely abandon following their views and benefiting from their opinions and ijtihad.
Right. So some of them they say that when you go to the book and the Sunnah and you don't take the sayings of those Imams who are different, then actually they are not benefiting from their ijtihadat, from their effort. We say that this claim is incorrect. Actually it's batil. Because we are not saying to abandon what Imam Shafi'i had said, or Imam Abu Hanifa had said, or Imam Malik had said. No, we don't call for that. We benefit from that saying, but we are calling that you should not say that I could follow the Shafi'i and the Hanafi and no problem about that, because each one is correct. The correct thing is always what? One. The haqq with Allah is only one. Cannot be multiple haqq. Either it's haqq or batil. So you can't have his haqq and his haqq, not the haqq. Like this person who is basically trying to say that all the madhab is haqq. So he said something and then there's two people disputing. So he said, we're disputing. So they came to the Shaykh. He's supposed to be a great Shaykh who is solving matters, which he's not. And they're boasting about him, look like how good his style is. So he said, what are you disputing about? He said, I say regarding this matter, this is the haqq. He said, you're correct. What did you dispute? He said, well, I say it is the other way around. He said, you're correct. A third person, he said, no, both of them are wrong. He said, you are correct as well. What is this? He's correct and he's correct, and the third one is both are correct. And that's the nonsense. You cannot unite people on such a thing like this. For verily, to go back to the sayings of the scholars is very important. You will never taste the fiqh until you know what the scholars had said. You cannot deduce fiqh from the ahadith yourself without referring to the scholar, saying, even the scholar himself. And ask for the window to be open. I am actually boiling. I'm a person when I talk different from you sitting down, mashallah, relaxing. So I need some. Yes, if you have just open this window for me. Yeah, it's a good AC. MashaAllah. Jazakallah khair. Right. So we find ourselves in this misconception, alhamdulillah, has been solved, to say that we benefit from the scholars. We don't put the scholars' sayings in the bin. We cannot, even the scholar, cannot deduce the benefits of a hadith without referring to other scholars. Go to the misconception number 4.
There exists another common misconception among muqallideen, which bars them from practicing the sunnah, which it is apparent to them that their madhab is different to it in that issue. They think that practicing the sunnah entails faulting the founder of the madhab. To them, finding faults means insulting the imam. If it is not allowed to insult an individual Muslim, how can they insult one of the imams?
This is again a false claim. Taking that, they came to the Shaykh and said, well, when we, for example, follow one madhab and the person leaves his own madhab, then he's actually accusing his imam to be a person who doesn't understand. He's actually insulting his imam. And we know that insulting a person, a normal person, is not allowed. How can you insult an imam? Subhanallah. Again, he says, the scholar Shaykh Al-Albaani, that the answer for this, for verily this is batil. The Prophet of Allah said, إِذَا حَكَمَ الْحَاكِمْ فَاجْتَهَدْ فَأَصَابَ فَلَهُ أَجْرًا وَإِذَا حَكَمَ فَاجْتَهَدَ فَأَخْطَأَ فَلَهُ أَجْرٌ وَاحِدٌ. When the scholar strives to arrive to a conclusion, and he was correct, he will have double reward. And if he had strived, and yet he arrived to a wrong decision, he will have one reward. So he's fluctuating between double and single reward. Do you understand me? Because he's a scholar. He will not be between two rewards and a sin. No, even if he's verdict, his decision is wrong, because he had made his utmost to arrive to the right conclusion, but he couldn't, he still is rewarded. And that's very important. But if you are an ignorant person, if you strived to get the right answer, and you made a correct answer, you are sinned. And if you made the wrong answer, you are more sinned. Do you understand me? If you are an ignorant person, and you strive to reach to a verdict, you're an ignorant, and you hit the target, mashallah, bullseye, you are sinned, still, because you are sinned. And if you did not hit the right answer, you are more sinned, because other people adopt your answer. You are sinned because you have arrived even to the right conclusion, but without knowledge. You are, just gambling. You are gambling, and you cannot gamble with the haqq, you cannot speak without knowledge. So, we say that when we say that the Imam Shafi'i had made a mistake regarding this issue, when he said, for example, touching the woman would invalidate the wudu, it's wrong. Because the Prophet of Allah, he kissed Aisha. Never mind, he touched her, and then he made the salah. So if the kissing would invalidate the wudu, then his prayer would be invalid. So, which one is more easier to say? To make the Prophet wrong, or to make the Shafi'i wrong? Of course, to make the Prophet of Allah wrong is a'udhu billah. So if we're going to say that when we say Imam Shafi'i is wrong in this matter, is going to be like insulting him, then it would be worse. We'll be insulting the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are not insulting any Imam. The Prophet of Allah, he went to Abu Bakr. When he made an interpretation of a dream, he said, أَصَبْتَ بَعْضًا وَأَخْطَأْتَ بَعْضًا. You were correct in some of your interpretation, and you are absolutely wrong in some of your interpretation. I'm asking, Shaykh Al-Albaani is saying, is this meaning insulting Abu Bakr? Did the Prophet of Allah insult Abu Bakr and said, you're wrong in some of your interpretation? Subhanallah. So, basically, when you are leaving the saying of your Imam to another Imam because you think that his proof is stronger and more correct, you are not insulting your Imam. Actually, your champion, your Imam, as we have said before, and we have mentioned lots of sayings from the Imams, Rahimahullāh ta'ala. Now, I would like you, alhamdulillah, we've finished now, to quote for me, that is something which I have really missed here, and that is in Shubha, misconception number 3. For verily, some of the people said, no problem to take the concession from each scholar. One scholar, he had made a book, and he pushed it to Al-Mu'tadid, one of the Khalifas at the time of the era of the Umayyad. And this book gathers all the concessions of those scholars at that time, meaning that regarding, for example, touching the women, he said, well, touching the women does not break the wudu because other scholars than the Shafi'i. And as for bleeding, it does not break the wudu because only Abu Hanifa says that, but Imam Shafi'i says, okay. So what, he always takes the rukhas. I mean, what is says halal, halal, halal. Basically taking it from this scholar, that scholar, whatever is halal. It's called rukhas, concessions. So he gave that book to the Mu'tadid. So Al-Mu'tadid, he said to the scholar, Imam, he said, what do you think of this? He said, this book should be burnt. For verily, who made, for example, the wine the wine from other than the grapes to be halal, he made the dancing haram. And he who made the dancing halal, he made this haram. So, you okay? Okay, inshallah. All right. Yeah, no problem, inshallah. We are neighbors Muslims here or Muslims? Not Muslims. We should really now make an effort to purchase the house next door. Or to make them Muslims, whatever. Okay, we'll make the whole building Muslim. If you want me as well, that you could lower the speakers here. We want only the sisters, isn't it? My voice is mashallah. I'm just using the speaker for the sisters, isn't it? Yeah. Otherwise I would not use the speaker. So if you have a system by which you could make the speakers here lower, then I will be happy to show. Now we're going to go to, after we have mentioned this sayings, we say that, he says here, the scholar, he who takes the concession of each scholar, then all the evil is being gathered into him. Alhamdulillah, we finished the introduction. Now we're ready to start the book. We're going to finish tonight, insha'Allah, if Allah wills, the first chapter, Istiqbal al-Kaaba. Page number, please?
Number 2.
Number 2. Go ahead.
When the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood for prayer, facing the Kaaba, that's the title of the. When the Messenger of Allah.
Is everybody on the facing of the Kaaba? Yes? Go ahead.
In the new book is page 14. In this book is page 2.
40. In that book, okay. 40 in that version, 4. And this one is what?
Page 2.
2. Subhanallah. Okay. Yeah. Huge difference.
When the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood for prayer, he faced the Kaaba in both obligatory and voluntary prayers. And he sallallahu alaihi wasallam ordered that, saying to the one who prayed badly, when you stand for prayer, perform ablution perfectly, then face the Qibla and say takbir. During
That's it. Now, you're going to hear this word, Hadith al-Musi Salat. Hadith of the one who prayed wrongly. That's the translation here. I don't know what's the translation in your book, brother. What's the translation in your book? Is it the hadith of the what?
It just says, yeah, the man who prayed badly. Yeah.
The one who prayed badly or the prayed wrongly, whatever. And the word badly is not correct. Wrongly is better. Badly, that means behaving in a bad way. True or not? Wrongly. Because he's wrong, he's ignorant. Not badly because he knows. And he's deliberately. So that translation is not correct. I believe that this translation is better. Even though the author who made this translation is outside the fold of Islam, but this translation is better.
You should not dispute this book.
You
should not dispute this book.
Dispute it.
Distribute.
Distribute. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'm just saying, just one word. Badly, not correct. Wrongly. Right, okay. Listen to me, please. Now, you need to know that your book does not say, in each time you mention something, that it is sunnah, fard, wajib, or is it, for example, rukun, pillar, or a shart, okay? Or is it just allowed, permissible? It doesn't say that. So you're going to add that from the book of the Shaykh Al-Albaani Rahimahullāh. It's called Talkhis Sifat Salat al-Nabi. And the Talkhis is the last thing that the Shaykh Al-Albaani had made. This is the concise. Somebody got the concise. The boy, I've seen him last month carrying Talkhis, little book. Okay, never mind. I've got it with me here on my laptop, my computer, but I'm just saying, that's Talkhis. It will add. If we haven't got anything from the Shaykh, I will give what I have came up to from the scholars to be regarding that issue. Shaykh Al-Albaani says in Talkhis Sifat Salat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, verily that I have mentioned in front of those acting the prayer, whether it is rukn or shart. Did I explain this in the first class?
Yeah.
Yes. And fard, and if it is sunnah, and if it is been left, that means there's a difference among the scholars, whether it is sunnah or it's a must. Difference among the scholars. And he says it's not from the correct approach, knowledge-wise, scientifically-wise, it is to decide one of them if we haven't got a strong proof. So we'll leave it. Jazakallahu khairan, rahimahullah. Right, istiqbal al-qibla is rukn. Rukn means a pillar. A pillar means it's part of the act, and if you leave it, then your prayer will be invalid. What are the cases where this rukn is not required? So we're going to write down, when is the qibla or the Kaaba is not a pillar. Facing the qibla is not a pillar. Case number one, fighting in severe fight. If you're in a battle, but you're not facing the enemies, then it must upon you to face the qibla. Because there was a prayer, it's called the prayer of the fear, where the Prophet of Allah was praying towards the qibla, but sometimes the enemy is in the direction of the qibla, sometimes it's in the opposite direction of the qibla. So the enemy will not, all of them will be praying towards the qibla. Some of them will be praying towards what? The enemies. And if you look at the prayer of the khawf, amazing. There are 6 forms of praying Salat al-Khawf according to where the enemy is positioned. Because even if you are in a prayer, Allah told us to take our precautions and not to let the enemy make an easy target of you. So, Allah Azza wa Jal had made it obligatory upon the believers to make the jama'ah whenever possible, even in state of war. Jama'ah, even in war. So the Prophet ﷺ, in the war, he would pray as follows. If the enemies at the back, not in the Qibla direction, he will divide them into 2 long rows, big ones. One row will be facing the Qibla with the Prophet of Allah, and the other row will be holding their arms facing what? The enemies, and they are praying. So when the Prophet said Allahu Akbar, everybody will say Allahu Akbar. One group facing the Qibla, another group is facing what? The other side. Allahu Akbar for ruku'. They will see ruku', and the other ones make a ruku' to what? To the other side. Sami Allahu liman hamida. Everybody says Sami Allahu liman hamida, and all the ones will facing other than the Qibla. Then we'll go to sujood. The first row, which is facing the Qibla, will go to sujood, and those ones will not go to sujood. Stay standing up in the position of Sami Allahu liman hamida. Because the enemies are waiting. If everybody got to prostration, they kill him. So they're waiting. And then Allahu Akbar, first sajda. Allahu Akbar, second sajda, another one still waiting, facing. And then Allahu Akbar, he would stand up. When he stands up, the first row will move and swap for the second row. And then the second row will go into the first row, will be facing the Qibla, whereas the first row is facing the Qibla, now facing whom? The enemy. If the enemies are looking, they say, what is going on? It's not a prayer, it's a player. They will think, they're not vulnerable, these guys. There will be a movement. So look at an army, a full army, we're talking about thousands. Could be about 3-4 rows. And 3-4 rows swapping. So they're swapping. And then they will be staying up. And those ones will be making their own sajda, because the ones who did not make the sajda, they'll make their first sujood, second sujood, and they'll be up with the Prophet. And then they do the same rak'ah, again the second rak'ah. Subhanallah, that's one of the ways to pray sadaqah. So here, if the person is extreme fear, extreme fight, even if he's praying and he is shooting with the enemy, he could be praying, and by bowing even not completely like this, ruku', sujood, because watching. Because if I did like this, he's going to kill me. So he is praying towards all directions. Where the enemy is his qibla. Where the enemy is his what? His qibla. And he cannot abandon the prayer. There's no such thing that, can I just push Asr to Maghrib? No. You can push Dhuhr to Asr. Maghrib to Isha. But you cannot push Asr into Maghrib. You cannot push Isha into Fajr. You cannot push Fajr after sunrise. It has to be according to what Allah said, إِنَّ الصَّلَاةَ كَانَتْ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ كِتَابًا مَوْقُوتًا. Prayer upon the believers to be a time book. It's a time. Right. Second exception, and that is the person who is incapable, right? Incapable. The incapable, give you examples. Marid, ill, he cannot face. Nobody's turning him, he cannot go towards the Qibla. You understand me? He just can't lie right back, he can't really face. No problem. Person who is in, for example, a plane, he stands, can't face the Qibla. They told him you have to sit on the seat, and the prayer is on. Then he could pray towards where he can sit, and that's his Qibla, because he's incapable of facing the Qibla. If he was capable to go, because I wouldn't say, I've never seen a person that say the Qibla is the opposite side of the seat. He can't really sit opposite the side and start praying to the people. Okay, but there is some planes that will offer a place, like Saudi Arabia, they have, mashallah, musalla inside their plane. A big musalla. You go to, for example, make Umrah, there's a big musalla. And jama'ah after a jama'ah. Even some of the planes, like the Dreamliner, when it came out, and I was going to Ramadan to my country. And I went on board of the same country, which is a Jordanian airline. And alhamdulillah, we made Taraweeh. I was really amazed. Lots of, even about 2-3 rows. Even the stewards, mashallah, they're praying with us. So alhamdulillah. But sometimes you can't. So Qibla is not required. Also, if you are fearing the time is going to finish before you find the Qibla direction, you're about now to lose the time of the prayer. At the end of the Asr, Maghrib is going to come. And you don't know where is the Qibla. And if you're going to find out, the Qibla is going to be what? And so the time is going to be what? Finished. So pray where you think is the Qibla. No problem. Third exception. He who prays nafilah, voluntary, or witr, while he is riding. Whether he's riding a camel or riding his car. So he's in a car, and he prays, not as a driver. No, you can't pray when you're driving. As a passenger, okay? Please. Don't people know me, I'm praying. What are you doing? I'm praying, brother. You can't do that. When you are a passenger. But if you are a passenger, you could really pray wherever the car goes. And this is nafilah. You don't have to step out. The plane, you can't step out. I can't say that the pilot, please park the plane here and let me step out. And, you can't parachute. Okay? But in the car, you don't have to stop it. If you're praying what? Voluntary. If you're praying obligatory to stop the car. You could pray in the car if the car is, mashallah, big enough, like it's a van. Inside the car, no problem, as long as it stops, you're obligatory. But if it's your car, small car, now you have to step out and have to have the standing posture. You can't just pray when you're sitting down, unless you are ill. We can't stand up. Do you understand? So you have to face the Qibla, the obligatory. If it's in the car, step out, but in the voluntary, no problem. But it is recommended, listen, to start Takbiratul Ihram facing the Qibla if you can. It's not a must. So before you start your voluntary prayer, you could just start with facing the Qibla, Allahu Akbar, Takbiratul Ihram, and then after that it doesn't matter where the car heads. Coming now to the following. Go ahead.
Second one.
No, just read after what you said. Continue.
During your journey.
Yeah. When you finish, do you remember when you stopped?
Yeah.
Continue, please. You don't have to ask me that. Just continue.
During a journey, he sallallahu alayhi wasallam would pray voluntary prayers and which on his mount, wherever it faced, carrying it east or west. The saying of Allah, the exalted, فَأَيْنَمَا تُوَلُّوا فَثَمَّ وَجْهُ اللَّهِ. Wherever you turn, there is the face of Allah. In Baqarah, chapter number 2, ayah number 115 applies to this. Sometimes when he intended to pray non-obligatory prayers on his she-camel, he would make it face the Qibla, say takbir, and pray towards wherever his mount turns his face.
So that means put there, it's a sunnah to face the Qibla when you make Takbiratul Ihram. When you're praying nafilah on your camel or in your car. Now,
he would make ruku and sajda on his mount by lowering his head, making the sajda lower than the ruku.
And that's very important. Do you want to understand? Because in the car, if you're traveling, you don't have to have full ruku or sujood because you can't go sujood on the floor. So you make a gesture. You make what? A gesture. What is the gesture? So this is Fatiha. I'm sitting now on a chair, like in a car. The car, wherever it goes, it doesn't matter. I'm praying voluntary. And then Allahu Akbar for ruku. That's ruku. That's my ruku. I'm sitting down. Then what is my sujood? Then Sami Allahu liman hamid. And then I go to sujood, Allahu Akbar. And that's the sujood. Just a bit lower. Now some people, I have seen them when they're praying on the chair, they say like this sujood. What is this sujood? Putting your hands on the air? Where do you get it from? You've seen some people, haven't you? Where do they get it from? I tell you, all people follow people. That's where they got it. They saw somebody did it, he just does it. Maybe that person's got a beard, long beard, oh, it must be correct. That's a problem. There's no such thing.
I did that, I didn't know. So,
I'm not talking about you, brother.
No, I mean, I didn't know.
I don't want anybody to start, I'm pointing to them. No. So, doing like this. Okay, because now everybody knows you. How did you learn it?
No, I've seen it there.
You see? Oh, people, do what you have seen other people. There's no problem. Just this is what is the norm. Other people do like this because they see other people. You must have seen somebody with a big beard.
Yeah.
All people follow big beard people. There's no such hadith like that, by the way. Got a big long beard, but he's ignorant. Okay? Praying on the air is not correct. You just your hands on the thigh. Some scholars, they said if you have a chair, then you could grab the chair. There's no proof for that. Prophet of Allah, he said, for the ruku', this, for the sujood, akhfar like that. Some people will put a pillow, or if he's praying in the plane, he will open that food tray in front of him, and he start making sujood on it. True or not? You must have seen it. Incorrect. Do that. Don't put it back. Don't put it on. Fold it and pray just like I said, like this and sujood like this. For the Prophet of Allah, his sole companion, was praying like that on a pillow. He took the pillow away from him. So don't use a table. Either you pray on the floor or you pray with gesture. And this is the gesture. Okay? Al-Imam. So this is how to pray the voluntary. Please continue from where you left it. Jazakallahu khairan, Shaykh.
When he intended to pray obligatory prayers, he would dismount and face the Qibla.
You have to dismount from the car. As for the plane, now listen to me. Because you can't dismount, you have to make sure that you pray your obligatory prayer not on board of the plane. This is maybe you've never heard it before. Voluntary pray as much as you want. I pray Tarawih and I let Tarawih in the plane, no problem. But obligatory prayer, because you are not on earth, you are hanging about. This is only for necessity. So if your plane leaves from here 1 o'clock and arrives there 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, so after midnight, you're going to miss Dhuhr and Asr and Maghrib. We're going to arrive, for example, 8 o'clock, you're going to miss Dhuhr and Asr. Then pray Dhuhr and Asr before you leave here. Because your Dhuhr starts at what? 11:50, 12 o'clock. You've got 1 hour. So on there, in the airport, pray Dhuhr and Asr. If you are local, 4:4. If you are traveling, let's say from here to Heathrow, you're a traveler. You pray 2:2 in Heathrow Airport. Okay? So that's how it is. Don't pray in the plane. Unless your traveling time does not allow it. So your plane is 11 o'clock in the morning. And you arrive 6 o'clock. That means you're going to miss Dhuhr and Asr. Then you have to pray on top of the plane. But if you have a time where you could pray before or plenty of time to pray afterwards when the plane land, don't pray inside the plane except for voluntary. Have you ever heard of this before? Okay. Then adapt it from now on. Otherwise your prayer is invalid. Your obligatory is invalid. So if you have time before or time after, can't do the prayer. If you have missed because you forgot and you boarded the plane and you had enough time to pray your prayer before, but because of the traveling and everything, and your plane is not going to land until the time the 2 prayers are finished, don't worry, because you forgot, you pray it on board of the plane. But don't push it deliberately. You have to pray it on earth. Prayer in between ijma', consensus, is invalid. All the scholars is invalid. You have to pray on earth. Inshallah, when we travel to the moon, there will be a different fiqh. Yeah. There will be a different book here. Praying on the moon. Okay. Without gravity. It's like, because somebody might ask me now, I'll just give you an answer. When we have inshallah moon, inshallah we'll tell you the answer. The scholars will arrive with you to an answer. Go ahead, please.
In prayer during severe fear, he sallallahu alayhi wasallam set example for his ummah to pray on foot, standing on their feet, or mounted, facing the Qibla or not facing it. And he also said, when the armies meet, then it is, i.e. the prayer is takbir and indication with the head.
That's it. We stop here, inshallah. We'll continue the following notes regarding this chapter because it needs a lot of explanation, which is between east and west. There's a Qibla. That takes a bit of time. I'm going to explain to you that, inshallah, and the story behind how the companions used to pray with the Prophet of Allah towards Bayt al-Maqdis, towards the Masjid al-Aqsa, and then the command came to them to pray towards Mecca, Al-Kaaba, and how did they swap, and how did they change their position, and also we're going to talk about Masjid al-Qiblatayn. Have you heard about this? Masjid al-Qiblatain, which is from the Bid'ah, Mazar, innovation, ziyarah. You're not supposed to go there because ziyarah, just pass by it, because there's no such thing there, a masjid that the Prophet of Allah built or companions had built, and people that might even pray, one prayer towards Jerusalem and one prayer towards the Kaaba. This is not from the ziyarah sharia, this is from the ziyarah of tourism. Tourism, yeah, but not Islamic. Islamic Baqi' al-Gharqad, Islamic is Shuhada Uhud, Islamic is Quba, that's it. So the place is for Islamic. Other than that, this is non-Islamic, this is bid'ah. So those people, ziyarah, no, so ziyarah, they don't understand anything what you mean. Most of them, they just want money. How much are you going to pay them for the ride? You have to go with somebody who's knowledgeable to teach you that, inshallah. Right, stop here, Jazakumullah khairan, Jazakumullah Shaykh, for a very good presentation. And we will take the question if you don't mind. Yes?
Okay, I have a question myself.
Facing
the Qibla.
He has, by the way, the veto. Better than the veto of America?
Facing the Kaaba, he says a rukn. But whatever we are teaching our students here, we say the Kaaba is one of the conditions of the Salah because it's outside the Salah itself.
Okay.
How can you clarify this?
Okay. Well, now, how can we say that facing the Qibla is a condition or rukn? First of all, there is no difference of the implementation. You understand what I'm saying? Whether it's a shart or the rukn, if you lose it, you lose that act. That's number one. Number two, there are differences among the scholars regarding some of the issues to do with the prayer, whether they are conditions or they are rukn. One of them is the intention. Is it a shart or is it a rukn? Because some of them this is part of the prayer, some of them is not part of the prayer, it's outside the prayer. Some of them they say it is the beginning of the prayer. The same thing goes for istiqbal qibla. Is it a shart or a rukn? For me, I say shart. But some of the scholars say rukn. So Shaykh Al-Albaani it's a rukn. So because he says that it's start of the prayer, whereas the wudu is split. You only start to do the prayer when you start facing, making intention and doing, that's the act which is linked to the prayer. Do you understand that the difference? But the implementation is the correct thing. And by the way, let's say a person had prayed after he strived hard towards other than the Qibla direction. Then after he finished the prayer and still time for the prayer, Dhuhr hasn't finished yet time. Somebody told him, Qibla is brother, that side, not that side that you prayed. Should he redo his prayer? No, he shouldn't. He should not redo his prayer. What's the proof for that? That's going to come ahead, inshallah, when we come to his time. And that is the companions. When they have prayed, they were on a journey, and they wanted to pray the prayer of their voluntary. And when you pray voluntary on earth, you must face the Qibla. It's only when you are on a ride. So, because it was dark, each one of them, he's prayed his own prayer of his witr and his night prayer. he made a line for himself. And he doesn't know how his colleague, his friend, had prayed. And the following morning, when the light came, they saw their lines. Each one is praying different from his other friend. One is praying this, and one is praying the east, and another the west, and another the north, and another the south. So the order of the Prophet of Allah is our prayer is valid. The Prophet says, all your prayer is valid. Now, we say that we should not repeat it even if it's in time because you've done your best. This is what you have strived. You did not, for example, toss a coin. You looked and you thought, I think it's most likely like this. And I tell the brothers regarding the Qibla, the best thing in this country is to look at the satellite. If you are in somewhere that you can't find it. These people haven't got smartphones, but some of them look at the satellite. You know the satellite dish? Where it's towards, just go slightly left from that direction of the satellite. So if the satellite is pointing that way, this way, go slightly to the left, that's the direction of the Qibla. You go outside after I finish my lecture, you check, you'll find that satellite dishes, because it's a hot bird is all of them to that direction, with the sky channels and all of that. It's towards this. But don't follow somebody who's from maybe another Arab country with the Nile sat. There's different setting, different direction. But most of the satellite dishes in this country are, I'm not saying Muslim toward the Qibla, but this is the hot bird direction. So it's slightly to the left, and that gives you an idea. And the satellite dish, they will be visible whether night or day, whether they are rainy day or not rainy day. Do you understand me? So you can see them wherever you are. There's not a single house except they've got a satellite dish. It's an easy thing for you, alhamdulillah. I'm not saying alhamdulillah to have more dishes, but this is to use the thing that there are people using it for haram, using it for halal, alhamdulillah. Dish. So I will look at that. So it doesn't matter. But I do. If you are a traveler, and a person who travels from one place to another, please make sure you take your traveling mat with you. So you have a mat, prayer mat. Plus, please, if you haven't got a smartphone, something to go. And my prayer mat has got the Qibla direction in it, so I know. Because you're not going to expect to ask Mr. Smith and John, where's the Qibla? What are you talking about, man? Yes? You're in a Muslim country. And also, make sure that now you plan your head as well, your travel. If you're journeying, for example, to Scotland, Newcastle one time, or for example, Dundee, it's going to be a long journey. You have to plan where's my Fajr is going to be. I planned, for example, when I want to go to Northampton, not to Northampton, to Nottingham. It's exactly the same name, Nottingham, but Nottingham was far away. To Nottingham. I planned my trip, I'm going to go 5 o'clock. So Fajr starts about 6:30 at that time. So 6:30 what I'm going to be. Most likely this. I looked Banbury. Where is the Sunni Masjid in Banbury? Because it's Shia Masjid, maybe Husayniya. There is. Do you understand? Ahlul Hadith. You know, there's a. Yes, it's only about 5 minutes from off-road. I ended up there, and I ended up even leading the prayer. Alhamdulillah. I didn't know the masjid, never seen it. I went there, alhamdulillah, I led the prayer. Alhamdulillah. And it's Masjid Ahlul Hadith. I didn't know Masjid Ahlul Hadith. There was 2 masjids here, which one to pick? So, it was the masjid of Shaykh Shu'aib. MashaAllah. So, you plan your trip, you have to. You cannot just say, and by the way, there is motorways services where there is musalla. On the M1, there's musalla. On the increase, inshallah. On the increase, they have to. They have to. They're selling goods, mashallah. They know that the Muslims, if they know there's a musalla, they'll come. And there'll be lots of people. And imagine, it's going to be a da'wah. People see lots of people praying that musalla. I think they'll maybe close it down later on. So make use of it before it closes down. Fadal. No question from you? There's no question from me. Sisters, please pass your question to whatever help.
Shaykh, you said you cannot pray obligatory prayer in plane. What can you do when your boarding time is before Fajr prayer?
I just explained that to the question.
Then landing is 2 to 3 hours.
So what is the answer, everybody?
Yeah.
You could pray you could pray in the plane, because Allah says, "Fattaqullaha mastata'tum." Fear Allah as much as you can. So if your time in the plane is going to exhaust all the time of the prayer, then pray on board of the plane. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Everybody's pleased with that? Okay. So Now, I'm just saying to the person who's saying this as well, make sure that you know the times of the prayer. Dhuhr and you're in trouble, and Asr becomes one time. You're in trouble. So Dhuhr and Asr becomes what? And Maghrib and Isha becomes what? And Fajr is always on its own. So, during the luxury time, there's no pushing, there's no pressure. Prayer times how many? 5. During extreme circumstances, prayer times how many? 3. Okay? That's how you should know. So now Dhuhr and Asr become one time. Maghrib and Isha become one time. You could pray Maghrib and Isha at any time between Maghrib and Isha. And Isha, what time does it finish?
Midnight.
Midnight. What time is midnight?
12.
Not 12 o'clock. No. It changes. It's between Maghrib and Fajr. You calculate midnight. I've said that before. You should remember that. Fadl. Shaykh?
That's all we have so far.
Yeah, Fadl. Any questions from the... We don't want to repeat the question for the sister to hear it. Okay. The microphone passed by. Alhamdulillah, got technology here. I'm impressed. Very good. We are, mashallah, improving. Inshallah.
Jeff, my question is, if somebody have delayed Maghrib to the time of Isha for necessity, whatever, he was traveling or something, but when he reached the masjid, the Isha prayer has already started. So how would he complete his Maghrib and then Isha after that?
Right, the person is asking me, what if, for example, that you have missed the Maghrib for any reason, maybe you're traveling, you have arrived to a masjid where the Imam is praying Isha, what should I pray? You might hear from me an answer, and maybe another Shaykh comes in here and give a different answer. But what I'm going to give you is based upon the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Prophet ﷺ said, "Man nama an salatin aw nasiya falyusalliha idha dhakara ala kafarata illa dhalik." And he says, he who sleeps from the prayer, sleeps during the time of the prayer, or forget, there's a reason, legitimate reason, then he prays the prayer once he remembers it. إِذَا ذَكَرَهَا. And that wasn't when he remembers it. لَا كَفَّارَةَ لَهَا إِلَّا ذَلِكَ. There is no expiation except for that. So you pray behind the Imam who's praying Isha, Maghrib. Shaykh Al-Islam doesn't say that, by the way, it's the opposite. He says Isha. Okay? I'm just saying, you could find somebody else adopting that opinion. But I just said this opinion is based upon that hadith. This is the opinion of somebody called, one of them Shaykh Al-Albaani, Rahimahullāh. You pray because this is the prayer of yours, and the prayer has to be in the order. Prophet of Allah never prayed a prayer before a prayer. He never put the Isha before Maghrib. So how do I do behind the Imam? I will just do my intention with Maghrib. If I caught up with the first rak'ah of his, in the third rak'ah is going to stand up, I'm going to be completing my tashahhud, and then making my salutation. And then I will get up and catch up with whatever remaining from the prayer of the Isha of the Imam. In this way, you will be able also to do the jam' combination, if there was a combination in the masjid due to the reason of cold, extreme cold, or snow. Have you made any jam' here for the snow, for example? Yes. Let's say the Imam, he had decided to make Maghrib and Isha, okay, at the time, do you understand me? At the time of the Maghrib. So he prayed now in the Maghrib and Isha, because of the snow. Jama'ah, are you listening, brother? Okay. So he finished the Maghrib. Now, he's going to start the Isha. If you are of the opinion to make Isha with the Imam before the Maghrib, you're not going to catch up with the combination. You can't do the combination. It's the Isha, that's it. But if you did the Maghrib with the Imam, now if you've caught up with whatever from the Isha prayer, you finished the third, you're going to finish up, you get up with the Imam, even with his tashahhud. You made tashahhud with him, he says, Salaam alaykum, you get up and make what? The remaining 4 rak'ah. And you caught up with the jam', with the combination. Wallahu ta'ala a'lam.
Jazakallah.
Yes, sir. Bye.
Shaykh, allow me to ask 2 quick questions. This on page 2, I have seen the reference 7.
Hang on. You are allowing yourself before giving you the allowance. Are we allowing you? Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much. Shaykh, here the reference number 7, it said the lowering his head.
not the lowering the back. And in the last line also it said lowering the head. So whenever I am seeing the sitting salah, it's lowering the head in sujood more than the rukun. Not the bending down, how the people sit on the chair. That's the first question. And second question, if the imam is sitting in the salah, obligatory prayer, so what about the muqtadi? Is we need to stand or...
The first question, let me just say, because I forget. You repeat the second question. First of all, hadith says, awma. Awma gave a gesture. And the gesture with the head, it doesn't mean the head dismantled from the body. If the person is able to move his body with the head, that's the gesture. That's the gesture with the head is called. Okay? When the body is moving. But if the person is paralyzed, he is in a state of can't move, then his prayer will be like this. So his eyes, there is no such thing with a finger, because there's a prayer of the finger as well. Ruku' sujood, no. It has to be like this, ruku' sujood. Okay, that's ruku' and sujood. If you can't move the head at all, just his eye, ruku' and sujood. So we say to the person, in the prayer, you do as much as you are able to do from that particular pillar that you're not able to do. So if you can't move your body, then your head. If you can't move your head, then your eyes. So the head, when it says the awma abi ra'si, it means like that. Okay, it means like this. Second question?
Okay. Second scenario.
And by the way, before I said that, he said, the brother Jazakallah, Assalamu alaikum. We want to get this habit not to start salam before the question. Because the salam is only when you go out and you come back. So you have to, brother, to go out, come back, and Assalamu alaikum. So, Assalamu alaikum, when we sat down, I said, Assalamu alaikum, you said, you know what? Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Khalas. After that, there is no renewal of the salam unless somebody goes to the toilet, renew his wudu, for example, come back, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum assalam, everybody, or one of the person, inshallah. Fadal Shaykh.
Okay, the second scenario, the imam is praying the salah while sitting. So what about the muqtadi? We have to stand or we have to sit? And is it any time Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam lead the salah while sitting?
Okay. And we will be talking about every... Don't worry, I don't know the book inside out. I could already say to you rehearsal. Okay. For verily, regarding the question which is going to be dealt with later on in the book, I am not objecting for you to ask these questions. But if I'm going to give you every time the answer for these things, you might not turn up for the following class. Because you already got your answers for the following class. Okay? But I don't mind, because I can't really stop this question. But I would say to you that this hasn't been dealt with. I would like you always to keep the question focusing on what we've talked about. But no problem, I'm not blocking the brother. Because maybe there's no question. So brother is asking, what about if the imam is praying, sitting down? In the Hanafi madhab, no imam to sit down and lead somebody who can stand up, regardless if that imam who's sitting down is a hafiz and this person doesn't know except for Qul Huwallahu. No, the one who stands up has to lead the one is sitting down. Do you understand me? But we say this is wrong. For verily for us, a person who is a traveler can lead somebody who's resident. Person who is sitting can lead somebody who's what? Standing. And the priority goes to the one who is knowing about the Quran the most. What is the scenario of the person imam when he's sitting? How can we pray? If he's sitting, that means sitting, that is in his ruku' and his sujood. But if he stands up and he sits on the chair when it comes to the ruku' and the sujood, then it's the normal prayer. We pray standing up. When he goes to the ruku', to the ruku', he's going to be standing up. When he goes to the sujood, he's going to sit on the chair. We don't tell the people, please bring your chairs as well and sit like the imam. You make sujood on the floor. But if the imam is praying sitting down on the floor and he does not stand up, then we have to sit, all of us. Did the Prophet prayed it? Number of times. Not just only once, number of times when he was ill. At the last phase of his life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he prayed sitting down. And when he prayed sitting down, companions were praying standing up. So the Prophet gave them a gesture like this. Can the sister see me? Or they just listen to you? Can they see? Yeah. So he did like this. That means what? Sit down. And he sat down. After the prayer is finished, he said to them, you're about to do what the Romans do to their king. Where the king sits down and the people stands up. You'll make him be like a king of Rome. We are sitting down, you're standing up on me. Sit down. For very the Imam, he's been made to be followed. If he sits down, you, إِذَا صَلَّى قَاعِدًا فَصَلُّوا قُعُودًا. You have to pray sitting down. So pray sitting down, inshallah. And amazing. Did you ever pray a prayer like this in any masjid? Look at that. So many things the Prophet of Allah had done in his prayer, you'll never see it. I'm not going to say you haven't seen it. You'll never see it. Because the people are not ready to receive such a sunnah. If the Shaykh is the Imam here, mashallah, he decided to pray the Prophet's prayer, where? On the pulpit. And make takbir al-ihram there, and ruku' there. When he comes to sujood, reverse, down. And then he can make sujood here. And he says to the people, I've done this to teach you. I'll chuck him out on the following day. What is this? Is it new prayer? But this is the prayer of the Prophet. True or not? So if the Imam is the Hafiz and he can't stand up, he himself is embarrassed. Brother, can you just lead the prayer because I can't stand up? Because he's not expecting people to what? To sit. Imagine you came to a masjid, mashallah, and you found the people are sitting down. And while they're sitting down, he sat down and he said, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. What? First time he said, it's strange, but later on you'll adapt to it, inshallah. Okay, let's just have the last question, please. Tfadal, with the kid, mashallah. Tfadal. Come on, he wants the microphone. Yes.
What happens if you're praying and then someone pushes you and keeps on pushing you?
Which side he pushes you?
Anyone.
Why is he pushing you? He's playing with you or?
On purpose.
That's a wrestling match.
Talking like the student.
Kids. Okay. I don't know, this is the praying, not wrestling match. I don't want you to start pushing him back as well. But if this person is pushing you while you're praying, as long as they're not harming you, you be patient until the prayer is finished. Then, because you are not a big kid, I would prefer if you go to the Imam or the teacher and tell him, this boy, I don't think he's an adult pushing you, he's just a child. Kid isn't like you. This kid is pushing me, you keep pushing me in the prayer. So the Imam will take note of that kid and he will discipline him the way that he deems it to be correct. Maybe he calls his parent. That's the best way. But you start pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing, he punches you in the wrestling match, and the Imam will be saying, no, subhanallah. We'll end up with this joke because you just talked about this question. So, Imam was leading the prayer. So, while he was leading the prayer, these people behind him, they started fighting. Like you said, pushing him deliberately. Pushed him deliberately. Pushed him deliberately. So they said, what are you talking about? You salatuk al-batila. Your prayer is invalid. Why are you praying? So the Imam was praying, he turned back. By the way, both of your prayers invalid. This is an ignorant Imam, by the way, because he invalidated his prayer. Subhanakallah bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk for listening. And see you inshallah in 1 month's time.